Welcome back to another episode of World Percussion at the WVU Summer Percussion Academy. Once again, we are talking about technique on a variety of hand drums. We talked about in the first video, we talked about a very general technique that you can apply to any drum using a Pon logo drum to demonstrate. Now we're going to be a little bit more specific. We're going to see how that technique applies to a conga drum. This might be an instrument that you're more familiar with. Traditionally it'd be called tumbadores. These instruments are from Cuba. What we want to do, first of all, again, just to review, is talk about the positioning and the sound production on each instrument. So again, I'm sitting upright at the edge of my stool. My drum in front of me is tilted slightly away from me to keep a nice ergonomic positioning in my arms and my hands. If I'm going to use a second drum, it's going to be seated on the floor. Obviously, I don't have a stand to hold that. But generally, if we're going to get a bass sound, we're going to get out of it the drum in front of us. We don't necessarily need it on that drum there. So the second drum can be flat on the ground off to either your right or left side, depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed. To adjust each one of these sounds specifically, again, to review, we had the bass, we had the open tone, and we had the slap. First, if I look towards the center of this drum using the big palm of my hand, I can strike just off center. To get that bass sound on the conga. If I want an open tone, again, I'm going to slide my hand back near the edge of this drum. I'm going to use all of my fingers, keeping them nice together, striking from right about here on up. And I can get that open tone. If I go from the bass to my open tone, again, I'm going to keep that same motion of my arm like I had before. That way it stays nice and loose, nice and relaxed. For the slap, again, first and foremost, a slap is a sound. It's not a volume. I'm going to take my hand from the open tone and I'm going to slide it towards that zone for where the bass occurs. I'm going to keep my hands nice and loose. That way the energy goes into my fingertips. Again, the back part of my palm comes in contact slightly with the rim of the drum, and it allows my fingertips to come down near that nodal point on the drum head. So again, we want that high pop, that dry sound, and we don't necessarily have to play the slap any louder. We have a couple of additional sounds on the conga that we wouldn't have on the Pon logo drum. The first is a mute. It's achieved just like an open tone, same part of the hand, same positioning, but now I'm just keeping my hand on the drum. Many times, a conga player, when they play a slap on a conga, they'll use what's called a closed slap. So this would be sort of a combination of our mute and our slap that we already know. So again, if I keep my hand in the same position as before, this time instead of letting my hand bounce off the head, I'm going to leave it on the head. That really gets a nice, crisp, dry sound for a slap. So if I wanted to do that same exercise that we did earlier on the Pon logo drum, instead of using my open slap, which would come off the head, I can use this dry, muted slap in that exercise as well. Again, all that exercise is just four of each sound. Again, with that muted slap, keeping those fingertips right on the drum head. Now if I have a second drum and I want an open tone, again I'm just moving my arm over, using the same motion from the shoulder, keeping my fingertips or fingers together, striking just near the edge of the sound that I had before. I can still get that open tone, a nice big ring. nice, big, and ring. Now, can I get a slap on that drum? Sure, you can get a slap on any drum. Notice that this drum is much bigger and much lower than we've had before. So now I really want to focus my energy in the fingertips really towards the center of this drum, almost like I did for the Pon logo drum. If I keep it in the same spot, I really want to aim dead center. That way I get a nice close slap. So if I want a close slap here, right? We can aim right for that center of the head and get that dry sound. This brings up another point that I didn't mention in the first video, which I'll put in right now. What to do with our thumbs, because as we start moving around, our thumbs become sort of in the way. We always want to make sure that we're keeping our thumbs up at a slight angle. So if I put it on the drum head, notice my thumb is just off the drum head. I always want to keep that energy right in that thumb, so there's a little bit of space between the knuckle of my thumb and the drum head. This is going to do two things. It's going to keep your arm nice and loose, help keep that wrist in a good position, but also move it out of the way. So that way, if I move from this hand sideways, I'm not going to whack my thumb on that rim, because as soon as I do that, I'm going to learn really fast not to do it a second time. Good news is you only have to hit your thumb twice to really get that full understanding of that. By the second time it swells up with a big bruise, you know not to put your thumb there. So you really want to keep that energy up, keep it off that head. Now, so we've got our bass, our tone, and now our muted slap for the congas. The other technique that is most common to congas that you will see is something called the heel toe. Heel toe is typically done with a non-dominant hand, but we can do it on both hands just for the sake of learning and for the exercise. If I have two drums, I can keep them one hand on each drum. If I only have one drum, I can keep that straight in front of me as well. If I look at my non-dominant hand, I'm gonna put my whole hand on the drum so it's nice and relaxed, and I'm gonna imagine a string on my wrist. I'm gonna pick my hand up and I'm gonna drop it. That's my heel sound. So if I want a heel, I want to drop it, and then my toe is the whole hand coming down on the head. So if I want heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Notice this gives us somewhat of a bass sound in that heel, and that's okay. That's what we want. We want to hear that sound. The heel toe is primarily used as timing, but it's an important part of the groove. It really provides a certain element of grace notes when we're playing a variety of grooves. When we talk about tumbao in a later video, we'll really hear what that heel toe has to do. So to develop this, we can do a variety of exercises. First, we could just alternate. So let's do a measure of heel toe with each hand. So starting with my non-dominant hand, I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have two drums and I want to do them both at the same time, I can go back to my left. If you're doing this at home, you're probably going to notice, boy, I can really feel that on that toe. To really kind of get that better stretch in there, we can work on that toe a little bit more too. So the second part of this exercise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, 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 right, for the second measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, that's going to really feel. You're really going to feel that burn in your up in your forearms. But that's what we want to get, that way we get a nice strong sound there. If you want to challenge yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, triple it, triple it, triple it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next hand, 1, 2, 3, 4. Triple it, triple it, triple it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll also help build up this heel toe. This heel toe, as I mentioned, is going to be really important as we develop the tumbao later. So this is our techniques for the congas. Again, we have our bass, our open tone, our muted slap, our muted sound, and our heel toe, specifically to congas. In our next episode, we're going to be looking at djembe and how some of these sounds change when you move over to djembe.